guys, welcome back to Exmo. First of all, I'm really sorry if you sent an email and I haven't responded yet. It's been kind of crazy, but I am trying to get to all of them, I promise. Next, if you guys like this channel, make sure that you are subscribed to it, and if you like the videos that I make, go ahead and leave me likes and comments. It's been a little bit difficult lately. There's been some kind of weird stuff going on in my life, my personal life, and I've been getting a lot of hate comments lately, and most of them are from the same few people who are just really angry at me for making these videos, and for the most part, it doesn't really get to me, but sometimes it starts to make me feel a little bit down. So if you do appreciate these videos and you like what I'm doing and you think it's a positive thing, please let me know that. Now let's jump into our topic. Growing up Mormon, I constantly heard about eternal families. At church, we often sing the hymn, "Families Can Be Together Forever." I learned about Mormon heaven, which includes 3 degrees of glory: the celestial, telestial, and terrestrial kingdoms, and also outer darkness. I learned about which kingdoms people go to depending on how they live their lives. And I learned in order to reach the highest kingdom of glory, the celestial kingdom, you have to get married in the Mormon temple or at least have somebody do it for you after you die. I had a very set idea in my mind of how I had to live my life in order to make it to heaven, and a huge part of that focused on family. Of course, I learned that although families can be together forever, it's not a guarantee. As a child, I had a close family member who consistently did things that were contrary to the church. They stopped attending, and they started making bad choices. As a child, I often cried when I went to sleep at night because I was worried for this person, and I was worried that their bad choices were going to keep them from going to heaven with me. My mom tried to comfort me by telling me that even though I wouldn't be in heaven with this person, that I could still go down from my kingdom to visit them in their lower level. It did not help me feel much better. How could I be happy without this person with me? That's pretty heavy for a child. I remember having these thoughts as young as 7 years old. How tragic is it that a 7-year-old child should be worried about being separated from their family members for eternity? Now that I have kids on my own, I realize that kids have a right to feel solid and secure in their family relationships. I was like super extra committed to doing everything I had to do to make it to heaven and to be with my eternal family forever. I felt bad for people who didn't do everything that the church says they should, and I often felt like they were being selfish and not thinking of their eternal family whenever they made those bad choices. After leaving the church, I realized how much of an emotional burden it was on me, especially as a child, to be constantly worried about losing my family in the afterlife because of my choices or theirs. And since then, I've met and talked with many people who have had deeply hurtful things said to them by their believing friends and family members, in an effort to coerce them into following the prophet and obeying the commandments. So today, we're going to talk about eternal families and how they are often used as a pawn to compel Mormons into being obedient. I did a poll on Twitter asking Mormons and ex-Mormons if anyone had ever tried to leverage their eternal family against them in order to get them to obey the prophet and follow commandments. In the end, 87% of them said yes and 13% said no. Honestly, it's a little bit surprising that anybody would say no, when these tactics are often used by the leadership of the church. In April 2019, Prophet Russell M. Nelson said the following when talking about those who leave the church or those who don't want to join. "I understand why God weeps. I also weep for such friends and relatives. They are wonderful men and women, devoted to their family and civic responsibilities. They give generously of their time, energy, and resources, and the world is better for their efforts. But they have chosen not to make covenants with God. They have not received the ordinances that will exalt them with their families and bind them together forever." So if your family leaves the church, they won't be in heaven with you. I'm leaving a link to this talk in the description of the video if you want to read it in its entirety. But I also want to paraphrase a story Nelson told about a man whose wife died, but he longed to be with her for eternity. After taking the missionary lessons, this man felt that he couldn't possibly live up to the church's standards or be able to pay tithing, so he asked Nelson to make sure that someone would seal him to his wife after he died. Nelson went on to say that posthumous work for the dead is pretty much useless if they reject the chance while they're still alive, bursting the idea that sealed and devout family members can pull their children or spouses into heaven with them. He talks about there being many mansions in heaven, but if people don't follow the commandments and make covenants with God in the temple, that families are going to be separated. I want to be very clear. It is emotionally abusive to manipulate people into obedience by dangling their beloved parents, siblings, and children in front of their nose, saying, "Pay tithing, keep your covenants, stay temple worthy," or risk losing the thing you love most. As humans, we are very social creatures who develop deep bonds with the people close to us. Most of us cannot imagine losing our children or our parents. We are told as members of the church that everyone has a choice whether to be obedient or not. But if someone were to take your child and say, hey, you jump over that cliff or I'm going to throw your kid over that cliff, would that really be much of a choice? Not for most parents, who wouldn't think twice before jumping. After people break free of the church, their ward members, friends, and family often resort to this manipulative threat of losing your eternal family in order to try to get them to come back to church. I'm going to read some of these experiences that were shared with me by my Twitter followers and also by some of my friends who reached out. I can't read them all because there were too many, but thank you so much to everybody who shared. Most of these are on my Twitter feed if you want to go check them out. My Twitter handle is exmo_lex. You decide for yourself if this is an acceptable way to treat someone. When I resigned, I was reminded by some that doing so would sever my sealing to my deceased son. That was followed up with pleas to stay in the church and try to change what I didn't like about it from within. Can you imagine having your dead child leveraged against you? That's disturbing. I can't imagine how this person must have felt. Even if you don't believe the church is true, that's still gotta be incredibly hurtful. My mother told me that by leaving, I am compromising her eternal happiness, as well as the happiness of the rest of my faithful family. Apparently, the promised eternal happiness is conditional on everyone in the family going to the celestial kingdom. That is extremely manipulative. It seems actually pretty common that family members will try to use their own happiness to try to get you to do what they want. Somebody told me when my husband left that I no longer qualify for the celestial kingdom, but they would come down to my level and say hi. At that time, I was still active, but automatically disqualified as a woman without a worthy husband. She hadn't even done anything wrong yet. Too bad your husband messed up, so you can't get to heaven. I had family tell me that if I broke the law of chastity, broke the word of wisdom, or removed my records from the church, I would be ripping my family apart and ruining our chances at eternity together. That line, ripping the family apart, is a trend. I've heard it multiple times, said to quite a few people. Had relatives tell me and my wife that we wouldn't have our 2 boys in the next life if we didn't come back to church. Again, using children as a tool to control the parents. Obey or else. My extended family's favorite line is, "You're creating an empty seat at our eternal table." Anytime I try to tell them how much happier and healthier I am since leaving, I get reminded that I should suck it up and be miserable in this life if it means being in eternity with them. It's so difficult for many believing members to understand that somebody could actually be truly happy outside of the church. They're taught their whole lives that the only true joy, the only true happiness comes from living the gospel. But in this case, they just go ahead and say, be miserable so you can get to heaven. What happened to men are that they might have joy? As you can see from these examples, and from the Twitter poll, and from the prophet's own words, the church, its members, and its leadership actively exploit eternal families, using the fear of their loss to control people. Remember when I went to church a few weeks back? I did a whole video on it, but there was a time where I was speaking to the Relief Society president, and she was brought to tears talking about how she knew that she was going to be with her husband forever. She loved him so much that she just could not imagine being separated from him when they died. The church likes to act like it's the only church that offers eternity with your family, and yet its only families can be together forever. Not families are together forever. It's a possibility, not a guarantee. But it's only if you pay your 10%, stay temple worthy, follow the prophet, keep all the commandments, and repent of all your sins, and make sure that your family does all those things too, otherwise you will be separated for eternity. It's hard to imagine that heaven could ever be perfect without the people you love most being there. Of course, people will make the choice to obey if the thing that is most dear to them is on the line. If any Mormons are watching this, I really hope you'll take this into account and never use these horrible tactics to try to manipulate people. If you truly believe in an afterlife where you are guaranteed eternal happiness if you're obedient, then go ahead and be obedient yourself. You follow the commandments yourself so you can be happy when you die. But don't use these manipulative threats to try to force other people to do it when they don't believe the same thing that you do. For the ex-Mormons, I know how hurtful it is to have these types of things said to you, but I hope you take comfort in knowing that the church is not true. You probably wouldn't have left if you didn't already know that. There is a wonderful, supportive community outside of the church. I'm glad that you're here. And if you ever need somebody to talk to, go ahead and reach out to me. My email is exmolex@gmail.com. Today's topic was suggested to me by a friend of mine. If you guys ever have a topic that you want to hear me go over, go ahead and leave it in the comments or send me an email. That'll be it for today, you guys. Remember to subscribe and please leave a like and a comment so I know you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at exmo_lex. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!